I'll now call the regular meeting of Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Visit Board to order. We are conducting the monthly meeting today in person and via video teleconference. First is the call to order, recognition of the quorum. I will conduct a roll call of members that are present on this teleconference and in person. And when I call your name, please say here. Jeffrey Coburn.
Here.
Josephine May, I believe she's with us. Candace Shobe White.
Here.
Marissa Neal. Sajad Jamil. Charlie Bell.
Here.
Ms. Hamilton, Heather introductions today.
I'm pleased this morning to introduce two new board members, including Ms. Charlie Bell, who has joined us here in the Edison room. She's a career corrections professional who is currently serving as the executive director of the Chandler Project, which focuses on the successful reentry of exonerated individuals back into society, as well as raising awareness of innocent people being wrongly convicted. Ms. Bell is pursuing a degree in healthcare administration from Sullivan University. Dr. Sajad Jamil is a physician who specializes in pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine and has practiced in the Louisville area for 10+ years. He received his medical degree from Allama Iqbal Medical College in Lahore, Pakistan, completed his residency at St. Barnabas Hospital in Bronx, New York, and his fellowships in sleep medicine and pulmonary critical care at the University of Kentucky and Louisville, respectively. So with that, welcome to the board. We're very pleased to have you join us.
Thank you.
Welcome. Looking forward to your help with the board. Would you like to say a few words at all?
I'm just new. No. I thought it was, right. I thought it was critical to be a part of this board in representation of the citizens of Jefferson County. And to do my part, to make sure that we have not only economic development, but to make sure that it's not at the expense of our people who live here as well.
Thank you and welcome. Other introductions?
Yes, I'm also pleased to introduce two new compliance officers. James Bailey, who joins the district after a long career with JCPS, bachelor's degree in business administration, and master's in both teaching and instructional leadership. James?
Well,
And also Nicholas Rockstro, who has a degree in mathematics and begins his professional career with the district.
hi.
All right, welcome. Thanks for joining the group. Public recognition, Ms. Hamilton.
It is, again, a very bittersweet day to join you all. But I ask that you join me in recognizing Craig Butler, who will be retiring at the end of the month for his 36 years of service to the district, local metro government, and the community. Craig started his public service for our city in 1988, working for the Louisville Free Public Libraries before joining the district in 2007. It is noted by those who worked most closely with him. Craig has been providing mobile emissions modeling in support of a wide range of projects, fulfilling regulatory requirements and supporting clean air funding requests on behalf of the district and many other community partners. This includes modeling to demonstrate transportation conformity through the entire metropolitan planning area, submittals to the National Emissions Inventory, several iterations of greenhouse gas inventories, grant applications that range from transit buses to idle reduction outreach efforts and lawn care for clean air rebate program outcomes. And this really covers everything from the largest on-road sources to the smallest non-road sources. And Craig, if it's out there, he's been asked to model it for us. In his time here, Craig also undertook several stationary source dispersion projects, a wholly different type of modeling. And one of the many examples of Craig's commitment to continuous learning and his ability to take on new projects. Likewise, in his mobile modeling work, Craig was also on the forefront of new model development, ensuring that our area's emissions estimates were made with the most up-to-date model using the best inputs available. Just to keep things in our mobile source emissions lane, Over the span of Craig's career with Louisville Metro government, our population has grown nationally by 44%. Energy consumption has increased 28%. And vehicle miles traveled have increased 114%. Yet criteria pollution emissions have dropped 71% from that sector. And overall, gross domestic product has increased 182%. So while we often talk here about stationary sources, the impact of those mobile sources, which has reduced as pollution in all sources, is a really big part of our pie now. And we couldn't have done the work we've done without Craig.
Very good. On behalf of the board, thank you so much for your service and good luck in your future endeavors. If it's a retirement, enjoy it.
Thank you.
I would say that all of us who have worked with Craig know of his passion for science and the district's own work. His intelligence and collaborative spirit in sharing his expertise will be missed. Made our work better. We expect you'll stay in touch, and we look forward to hearing from you when you reach out to us. Most importantly, we wish you and Rita well in this new chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to the approval of minutes, the minutes of the regular meeting held, I believe on December the 20th, 2013, were distributed electronically for review. Are there any comments, edits, et cetera, from board members? Hearing none, those meetings are approved. Public comment, Ms. King, if anybody registered to make a comment this morning.
Yes, sir.
Has anybody provided a written comment for today's meeting?
Yes.
Are there any members of the public in the Edison room who prepared the call to get here that wish to make a comment? If so, please raise your hand. Are there any other members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this video teleconference? If so, please raise your hand via video teleconference. You will be called on. This is a feature you can find on the participants list or by pressing *3 joining by phone. Ms. King? Anybody?
I see no
Raise the
raised
hand.
hands.
Thank you. There is no unfinished business. I note that Marissa Neal has joined us.
Yes, and Dr. Jamil is in the process.
Okay, so we're going to wait just a second.
He is here. He's not on screen right now as his camera is not on, but
Okay,
he is present in the meeting.
so we can move forward. Well, first,
Have his camera on during voting, but
he does. Okay, you'll let him know that for sure. Can you hear us?
I believe so.
Okay. All right, we're moving to new business, and this will be a little bit different than what we've experienced in the past. We're going to turn this over to the board's secretary treasurer to lead us through the process of electing board officers. Ms. King.
Yes, 1 second. I think Jamil was having some technical problems with video of the Edison room.
Yeah, I see myself, but I don't see the Edison room or Candace.
I think those may be settings on your end of the WebEx.
Okay.
If you scroll up to the top, you'll see a layout button and you can choose.
Yeah, they're just black boxes that have the name.
It might be see everyone. I'm not having any issues viewing. It may be the settings on your phone.
Okay. I might just, I might jump off and come back on and see if it'll fix itself.
Okay.
All right, in the meantime, Sajjad Jamil has joined us, right?
Mhm.
So first, welcome so much to the board. We look forward to you joining us.
Thank you.
Director Hamilton gave a brief bio. You want to add anything? I know you didn't hear it, but but if you want to add anything.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. And I'm just, I mean, that bio was pretty much it. I mean, and if anybody has any particular question for me, I'm here to answer. And I'm privileged to sit on this board, and I'm just learning today, how does it proceed?
Well, thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
And again, we're going to give it a few minutes for Ms. Neal to rejoin us.
Can you see us now?
Yes.
All right,
Okay, good
great.
to go. Ms. King.
Thank you. Because the previous chair's term of service on the board expired and his successor on the board has been appointed, the office of chair is currently vacant. The board's bylaws say that in the case of a vacancy of the chair, the vice chair automatically fills that seat. As such, Steve Sullivan, our previous vice chair, filled the chair position as we began today's board meeting. However, because there was not an officers election conducted during the regular July 2023 board meeting, as called for in the board's bylaws, the vice chair position was not elected for this year, meaning that 2 elections will need to be held today. The board's bylaws do not set out a process for filling vacancies when both the office of the chair and the office of vice chair are vacant. However, Article 4, Paragraph D of the bylaws provides that when a vacancy occurs in the office of the vice chair, the board shall, at its next regular meeting, elect a new vice chair to serve the remainder of the term. The same paragraph also provides that when a vacancy occurs in the office of the chair, the vice chair will automatically vacate the office of the vice chair and automatically become chair for the remainder of the term. Accordingly, there will first need to be an election for the vacant office of vice chair, the election of which will result in the vice chair-elect then automatically becoming the chair, filling that seat for the remainder of the term, which will end in July 2024 with new elections. At that point, we will then have a second election for the office of vice chair, which will again then be vacant. The selected vice chair will serve in that office for the remainder of the term. At the end of this 2-step election process, there will be a new chair and a new vice chair, both of whom will serve until the regular election of officers at the July 2024 board meeting. Before we begin the process of electing officers, I will provide a brief overview of the duties of the offices and the requirements of the officers as laid out in the bylaws. First, the duties of the chair. These include presiding at all meetings of the board, calling special meetings of the board, appointing all committees, signing contracts on behalf of the board, providing for the implementation of all board action, performing such further duties as may be required by law or requested by the board from time to time, and being the official spokesperson for the board in all matters except when someone else may be designated to be such spokesperson. The duties of the vice chair are to perform the duties of the chairman when the latter is unable to perform these duties due to absence or incapacity. The bylaws also lay out the following requirements of officers. Officers are eligible to succeed themselves. This means that the same officers can be elected to these seats multiple times and in succession for the length of their tenure on the board. The chairman and vice chairman shall be of different party affiliation. Now, we will begin the first election for the office of vice chair, who will automatically fill the currently vacant office of chair. Do we have a motion to open the floor for nominations?
Can we ask if anybody's got questions first of the board? From the board? Everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So do we have a motion to open the floor to nominations?
I'll make a motion to open the floor.
Do we have a second?
A second.
We will now hear nominations for the office of vice chair, who will automatically fill the currently vacant chair seat. Are there any nominations?
I'll nominate Steve Sullivan.
Mr. Steve Sullivan has been nominated. Are there any further nominations? If there are no further nominations, do I hear a motion to close the floor to nominations and proceed to a vote?
So.
And a second? Dr. Jamil, just a note that you're not on camera and we will need to see you for the vote. Thank you, sir. And I believe I heard you as a second.
Yes.
We will now conduct a vote. Because there is only one nomination, the bylaws require only a voice vote. When I call your name, please cast your vote for Mr. Sullivan by saying for or against. Steve Sullivan. Dr. Coburn.
For.
Candace Show White.
Or
Marissa Neal.
4.
Dr. Jamil. I think you are on mute.
Or.
Thank you. And Charlie Bell.
4.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan has now been elected as vice chair. Because there is currently a vacancy in the office of the chair, Mr. Sullivan will now automatically vacate the office of vice chair and become the chair. We will now conduct the second election to fill the now vacant office of vice chair. Do I have a motion to open the floor to nominations?
A motion to,
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. We will now hear nominations for the office of vice chair. Are there any nominations?
nominate Dr. Coburn.
I second.
Do we have any further nominations? Dr. Coburn has been nominated. Everyone's correct. If there are no further nominations, do I hear a motion to close the floor to nominations and proceed to a vote?
Motion.
And a second? All right. We will now conduct a vote. Because there is only one nomination, the bylaws require only a voice vote. When I call your name, please cast your vote for Dr. Coburn by saying for or against. Steve Sullivan.
For.
Dr. Coburn.
For.
Candace Show White.
4.
Marissa Neal.
4.
Dr. Jamil.
Or.
Charlie Bell.
4.
Dr. Coburn has now been elected as vice chair. The elected officers will now serve the remainder of their respective terms, which is through June of this year. The board will then conduct its regular officers elections during the July board meeting. Mr. Chair, the election of officers is complete. I'll now turn the meeting back to you.
Thank you so much. So we'll move on to committee reports, which no committee met, so there are no committee reports. Next, we'll move to staff reports, beginning with the director's report, Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you again, Chairman Sullivan. That was a very fair process, and I'm so glad that we were able to have everyone join us in what, from a democratic standpoint, this is really democracy in action, and for that reason, it is serious, and I appreciate that. That said, it is a bit of a board game, and at some point, it felt like perhaps mousetrap should have been said. That said, welcome to the board, welcome to you in your positions. As always, each of our board members help us do our work, and we are grateful for that. With that, I'm very pleased to report this morning that we are fully staffed in our community compliance group with the addition of James and Nicholas. We do still have some key vacancies. Some are currently posted on Metro's website. Some will be posting here in the very near future. There are very few places where you will find work so satisfying. And I think Craig is, some testament to that. The work is difficult, it's challenging. It's where air quality science and technical practicalities of air pollution control, law, public and regulatory policy all come together. And if that doesn't sound like a little bit of regulatory Sudoku at the end of the day, and sometimes it does feel that. But the work is incredibly important. And at the end of the day, all of us help people to breathe better. It's pretty good work. So, as a reminder, Our work is a continuous improvement plan. We are currently awaiting a decision from US EPA on finalizing the National Ambient Air Quality Standard for particulate matter. As a reminder, the current standard is 12 micrograms per cubic meter. Our current design value is 10.9 micrograms. That's compared to that 12 microgram standard. US EPA proposed a standard between 9 and 10, but they took comment also on a standard between 8 and 11. So that's really what we're waiting for, is seeing where along that spectrum they have decided to land. We're also, because of the contribution of the Canadian wildfire smoke, hoping to see them take a global approach to the contribution that many of us along the eastern seaboard saw last summer. By comparison, before those Canadian wildfires, our design value was 10.2 micrograms. We're currently at 10.9. We will let everyone know as soon as that rule is finalized. And then we'll begin to talk about how we look compared to it and what work may lie ahead. Our work isn't the only work going on in Metro government focusing on pollution reduction. Louisville Metro government, through the Office of Sustainability, is participating in US EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. They received a $1 million cooperative planning grant late last year. And it's intended to provide federal funding to state governments, municipalities, tribes, and territories to plan and implement strategies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful air pollutants. States were awarded $3 million. Municipalities, there were 67 where the metropolitan statistical area was large enough to automatically qualify for this cooperative grant. And we were one of those. The state of Kentucky, along with 3 other states, Florida, Wyoming, and another state somewhere in the middle of the country, declined the $3 million. And so that funding actually cascaded down to the next largest municipalities within those respective states. Right now.
Can I ask a clarifying point? So the $1 million is part of that 3 million?
No,
Okay,
It's
so that it
independent.
adds to it?
it does not add to it for us. It's $1 million and we're capped at that
Okay,
in this portion of the grant cycle. What this is intended to do is to bring communities together. And for us here in Louisville, that's 11 counties in Kentucky and Indiana who are working together to look at this issue. And it's to pull us together to develop plans. Right now, we're working on a priority plan, but later we'll be working on a more comprehensive plan. And I'll get to some of those details here in a second.
so the 3 million, where does it go?
So it's gone to Lexington
Okay,
and other
you
communities
otherwise didn't have.
in that $1 million up to $1 million allocation. So the planning grant will result in 3 key deliverables. It's a short-term plan, priority climate action plan, a long-term plan, a comprehensive climate action plan, and a status report that will be due at the end of the 4-year planning period. Last week, the Office of Sustainability, which is leading this work for the metropolitan statistical area, brought together the Net Zero Advisory Group to provide input on the priority climate action plan and an implementation grant application, with the hope that the Net Zero Advisory Group will grow into a long-term work group that will chart an ambitious, achievable, collaborative, and equitable pathway for Louisville to achieve its science-based climate target of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040. That's a heady goal. Here in Louisville, we've had planning on climate change and resiliency going back several years and have developed several plans that right now are awaiting funding. This is really an exciting time and a remarkable opportunity to take those plans in this priority climate action plan and to seek funding to actually implement them. This priority climate action plan will be followed. This one is due March 1st. Let me get that out there. Real short turnaround, but again, we've got those plans already on the shelf. In April, we'll be competing for funding to implement that plan. That can be anywhere from $2 to $500 million. So there's a real opportunity here, again, to take those plans that we have for climate adaptation and resiliency and get money to get them implemented quickly. For the district, anytime that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we generally reduce criteria pollutants as well. It is an immediate win-win for the district and our mission. And so we have a number of people throughout the district who will be participating with this net zero advisory group in various groups: industrial, waste, wastewater, residential, and building, in order to be sure that that ability to tap into not only the climate reduction capacity, but the criteria pollutant capacity will take place. The Office of Sustainability is confident that we'll meet the deadlines that are approaching for the Priority Climate Action Plan. Again, March 1st for the initial plan, April 2024 for the implementation plan and grant process. But they're also confident that we'll meet that comprehensive deadline for planning that should occur in mid-2025. So this work requires input from everyone. And while the net zero working group is pretty large, covering 11 counties, I think there are about 200 people that were initially convened in a large group. They want to hear from everyone. And so there is a regional climate action plan survey on their website. We're going to go ahead and put that link into the chat for those of you online, and we ask that you take that. During our meeting, they indicated that they had had 250 people respond to date, and that the top two issues were, of course, addressing climate change, and then the second was improving air quality. So it's an awesome opportunity for all of us to work together to reduce the impact of climate change and to increase our ability to be resilient while reducing pollution and make Louisville a stronger, more resilient, and healthier community for all. So please take that survey, and we will keep you up to date as we work through the process and continue to provide information from the Office of Sustainability.
So the requirement or the need to get the survey in quickly is paramount.
It is. And again, this won't be the only time the Office of Sustainability asks for input. This is a process that's going to extend several years, and community engagement will be key to its success. Speaking of our own community engagement, sorry.
If I may, a quick clarification, is the Priority Climate Action Plan for the entire community and region, or is it for metro government to achieve net zero?
Metro government is leading this, but that 11 county area is also part of our planning population. So the University of Indiana, City of New Albany are very active participants in this particular project.
So, I guess further clarification, is it government activity achieving net zero, or is it the entire community?
So the term net zero, there is a specific ordinance that applies to Louisville metro government. And because that has been a focus of the Office of Sustainability, it's why that term is being used here. How that gets extended into other communities, I think that's certainly not covered by the ordinance. But, okay.
I think
Any other questions?
But the objective is community-wide, regardless if it's private or public sector at some level,
It is.
obviously. Okay.
It is. And, we're all in this together. We're going to sink and swim together, not just as a Louisville metro government, but also as that larger, broader area.
Thank you.
Okay, speaking of engagement, the district will hold a public meeting on a renewal Title V operating permit for Clarion South plant. This plant is located at 4900 Crittenden Drive, which is out near the airport. That public meeting will be held tomorrow night here and online at 6 o'clock. Compared to a public hearing, a public meeting is less formal, and it provides an opportunity to learn more about the facility and the proposed renewal permit. We invite the public to join us in person or virtually this week for the public meeting. Join us next week on January 23rd at 6 o'clock, either here or online, for a formal public hearing where we'll take oral comments on the proposed renewal permit and ask that they continue to submit written comments through the extended public comment period, which ends on January the 24th. Any questions on that? All right, moving on. I apologize to the board. I intended to send you an email last night about House Bill 136. Many of us were attending the West Jefferson County Community Task Force meeting, and I confess I did not go back after I closed out my browser and actually sent it. So I want to bring House Bill 136 to your attention this morning. Before I begin, just a reminder, the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District is a public body corporate and a political subdivision of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and we're authorized under KRS Chapter 77. In short, we're a creature of statute, and we are subject to statutes that are passed by the Kentucky General Assembly. In January, the proposal to amend existing KRS 224.1040, which is titled the Evidentiary Privilege for Environmental Audit Reports, Exceptions, Restrictions on Civil Penalties, was filed. It's now moved on to the Natural Resources and Environment Committee for consideration. With respect to this particular piece of legislation, I want to point out that it's existing in 120 counties here in the Commonwealth. It exists at the federal level through US EPA's own self-audit policy. And with the exception of Jefferson County, covers environmental violations related to air, water, and waste. Here in Jefferson County, it currently only applies for relief for violations of water and waste regulations. The district has not adopted a policy like US EPA's, which has been around for decades and is very similar to the policy that's expressed here in KRS 224.104. To give you a bit of a background, audit policies, again, are extraordinarily helpful when there is a large geographic area to be covered and perhaps less staff that an agency would prefer to have. It does encourage companies to look at their operations. That said, there are also environmental management programs such as ISO 14001, which are recognized. That's an environmental management program where companies voluntarily take on the mantle of recognizing their obligation to environmental management on a day-to-day basis at their facilities. And so there's a American Standard Testing and Materials Standard, ASTM standard, that actually applies to that ISO 14001 environmental management system. With respect to both US EPA's policy and the policy in Kentucky statute, a company who self-discloses and self-discovers violation of an environmental rule or regulation under certain conditions may seek relief from civil penalties. It is limited. It's not as extensive as it may sound from my description. What is self-discovery is clearly expressed, and what is self-disclosed is equally as well expressed in the statute. In addition to being something that can't be an obligation in your permit that you simply failed to do, for example, there is a vast difference in the air program. And US EPA notes this in their own FAQs, that for our larger sources here in Louisville, those are our Title V sources and our PDUC sources. There's an obligation for sources to annually or more frequently certify that they have complied with all applicable requirements. It's defined in our Title V rule. It's a very broad definition. And we believe we write permits that require very specific record-keeping, reporting, and monitoring obligations that otherwise would not allow you to call something self-discovered. So the availability of audit relief for the AIR program is very, very limited. EPA gives two examples. One is where there's a new company, and that company, as part of their due diligence, conducts a third-party audit, and discovers something and immediately discloses that to the regulatory agency, that may be a condition for relief. Or if there's an existing facility where, for example, the regulatory agency forgot to include an applicable requirement, and it was unknown to both the regulated entity and the regulator, that in that case, a civil penalty may not be appropriate. For that reason, as well as the fact that the civil penalty policy for stationary sources, which the district uses to guide its work, provide for adjustment of a civil penalty for voluntary disclosure and cooperation. Take that into account. Many people come in with a settlement and they'll find that it's been reduced by 25% because we've brought them to the table and it's reduced our costs. They voluntarily came forward with that. The other reason why we don't feel, or we haven't adopted this in the past, is that we do have a small business environmental assurance compliance group. And here in Louisville, if you are a small business, less than 100 employees, and you meet the definition in federal rule, you may call us up and receive confidential and free help to come back into compliance. And if you satisfy the requirements of that rule, which are somewhat less than what's required for self-disclosure here, you come back into compliance. You don't get referred to enforcement. There is no civil penalty. And so we've offered that already to small businesses who may need that specific assistance. We're going to continue to review the legislation. I have some questions about some of the language in Section 8 regarding when a civil penalty may be sought. You can't, for example, seek a civil penalty if there's been a competitive advantage over a competitor. So if you didn't do something and it caused you to be able to make more money than your competitor, that economic benefit is taken into account and would not qualify you for relief.
So it's taken as a negative.
Taken as a negative. But there are also other things that would prohibit relief for civil penalties under both EPA's rule and this rule. And that is, if the violation has occurred, same or similar violation has occurred within the last 3 years, if it has been part of a judicial or other documented settlement in the last 5, and if the company has received mitigation previously from a state, local, or federal agency. There's a bit of difference between the language in Section 8D that I just talked about, that last, when the violation last occurred, whether it was documented in some other settlement, that differs from US EPA's example. Under EPA's audit policy, you don't get civil penalty relief if it occurred at a single facility within the last 3 years, at a related facility elsewhere in the country within the last 5 years and documented in one of those settlement type documents, or if you've received mitigation. And so I'd like to look into the legislative history around how that was drafted compared to the.
So is that ambiguous language, or are they intentionally including those examples or situations?
I need to look at that. We need to look at that as a district. You know, when there are changes between drafting, you assume that a change was intended. So we'll go back and kind of try to pick apart that legislative history to better understand that particular provision. And we will keep the board advised as that legislation moves forward. This is a long General Assembly session. I believe that their last day is mid-April. So it may be revised as the process moves along. And again, we'll keep the board informed as we go forward.
So is it reasonable to say that you haven't taken a position on it yet? Or do you do that anyway?
We've not taken a position on it yet. Respectfully, it does not change the district's discretion
Okay,
when we would evaluate whether or not a situation meets specific elements of an underlying applicable requirement or the requirements set out in KRS 224, if it were to be applied to the district. It's still up to us to evaluate all of those metrics and make a determination.
okay.
Okay. All right, if there are no other questions, this will conclude my report.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to a variety of reports that were submitted electronically, including air quality data, air toxic. I don't think we had an air toxic report this month. The enforcement status report, excess emissions event report, complaint investigation status summary, and launch for cleaner air. Are there any comments, questions in regard to those reports? They, seemingly are all pretty good.
I have a question.
Sure.
But I'm trying to read the report. It's the excess emission event report. And I'm just trying to get some clarification on how these dates are working. You want like specific?
So-
Question?
So I'll be happy to talk with you about it afterwards and explain the
Okay.
report, but generally, the way that report works is within an hour or two of when an event happens, they have to give us an initial report.
Okay,
And then 15 days later, if there was an excess emission, they have to give us a follow-up report.
Okay.
And there also may be a date when it was reviewed. So there may be some dates in there that don't make a lot of sense, but generally the process is the day it happened, 15 days or a little earlier from when it happened, and then when we reviewed it, which should be within the next week or so.
so who initially makes the,
The initial report comes in from the company.
okay,
Are they also required to tell you when it stops?
They are, but I don't think that's on that report.
that's, my background is correction, the report writing is my thing, I'm like these dates. are-
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's it.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. With that being said, we're going to adjourn the meeting. We want to thank you for your participation. And the next board meeting will be Wednesday, February 21st at 10 a.m. Say more.
Thank you for joining us.